Okay, everybody. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Faith Brunel's Insights podcast. I'm Faith Brunel, and I'm back with yet another guest speaker, Kishma Bolaji. Hi, Kishma. How are you today?
Hi, Faith. I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, no problem. I'm really happy to have you, so I can hear about your very inspiring and very interesting journey to becoming a solicitor. So let's talk about. So let me hand over to you for a brief moment. So, can you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Sure, I'm Kishma Bolaji. I'm a senior associate solicitor at CL Law, specializing in medical negligence claims and catastrophic injury claims. I am also one of the founders and co-chair of Birmingham Black Lawyers, which is a social networking organization now set up as a community interest company. We support aspiring lawyers and junior lawyers who are trying to make their way up the ladder in the legal profession, basically.
That's great, fabulous. So thank you, Kishma, for giving us an insight and an overview as to your journey as a medical negligence solicitor and as co-chair of Birmingham Black Lawyers. So actually, I know that I gave you some questions, but what I like to do also is kind of flip the order. So that's what I'm going to do
Sure.
today, just to make it a bit more natural as well. Because you just mentioned the Birmingham Black Lawyers and you talked about how it's a social organisation which really exists to help, the next generation of lawyers. Can you talk to me, as a co-chair of Birmingham Black Lawyers, what are some of the key challenges you face in promoting diversity and inclusion within the legal profession?
I think, diversity, equity, and inclusion are really hot terms at the minute in the legal profession and in most organizations because everybody wants to be seen as being an inclusive organization. I think in terms of challenges and difficulties that I've come across in law, is that it's easy to say that you want to be diverse. It's easy to say that you are interested in improving the diversity within your business, but words and actions often don't marry up. So we get approaches from organizations that want to maybe partner with Birmingham Black Lawyers to host an event, but we're more than just an event organization. We need to see change. We want to implement change. We want to help you get better at attracting Black talent. And
Yeah.
often we see that that's not actually the ultimate goal. There's a lot of tick boxing checking going on, especially as we get closer to Black History Month. There's a lot of interest in hosting events with Black organizations. So I would say among the numerous challenges we face with BBL, one of the frustrations for me is where I don't see a genuine interest in an organization to improve diversity within their business, but rather just a policy being written or
Yeah.
what's being ticked to say that done something and they've partnered with a Black organization.
Yeah, and I think that's really insightful because that really makes us aware of the wider problems at large. I think that a lot of companies are thinking about, as you said, it's a box that they want to be ticked. There's a lot of tick boxing rather, and I think what they have to understand is that there's more, there's more than just one event, in the calendar of the year, for example. And I do find actually, even in secondary school, there was more of an awareness, there's more of an inclusion of, especially, of myself being a Black woman in Black History Month. And then we saw that kind of, it just died down afterwards because
Yeah,
in their
very
mind, they have to
right.
tick a box. Exactly. So as long as we have a few events for the Black community to, allow them, to let them feel included and part of something, then then we've done our job. But it's more than that, as you said. And so Birmingham Black Lawyers really, to me as an aspiring barrister, seems that it's something that really encourages us to be valued more than just for one event. It's more than that. It's throughout the year, throughout our lifetime, throughout our journeys. And so
Yeah,
here at Faith Brunel Insights, it's all about your journey, because the mantra is, it's not an event, it's a journey. Your journey can begin now.
absolutely.
Exactly. So it's not about one event. It's not an event. It's more than an event. And so I'm glad here that you, as being the co-chair, and I'm aware of the other chair as well, would definitely be pushing that agenda to make sure that the narrative is changed and that there is a paradigm shift as well in terms of how Black people and how ethnic minorities are viewed in terms of the legal sphere and wider than the legal profession as well, viewed as
Yeah.
a whole, which is very important. So once again, congratulations for that achievement as well, because I feel feel like, you know, as again, I'm going back to my experience as an aspiring barrister, a black female aspiring barrister, it's very comforting to know that there is a organization that, you know, that looks like me, that is for my interests, and will do their best to make sure that we change the narrative. So thank you, Kishma, for that. Lovely. And, you know, as you probably noticed while you're talking, I jotted a lot of talking points down because very interesting stuff. So lovely. And I'm sure the listeners who are listening today will definitely head over to LinkedIn to support, and even wider than LinkedIn, to support your events as well and to promote that. Wonderful. So I'm going to go back to something you said, because you are a solicitor. So can you tell us a bit about that journey and how you became interested in this particular field of law of medical negligence?
Sure. So medical negligence is niche, and when I developed my interest in law, there was no interest in medical negligence at all. I was born and raised in the Caribbean, and I come from a family with very limited means. So aspiring to go to university and have a career such as the one I now have was a bit of a pipe dream. It's not something that a lot of people told me was, you know, it was unrealistic. I was trying to hang my hat too high, or however the saying goes. But I was really blessed and really fortunate to be able to get the funding to come and study in the UK. And I think that whilst I was really excited to sort of be able to prove all the naysayers wrong and actually get my feet wet in terms of being accepted at a prestigious university like the University of Birmingham. When I actually got here, it was quite a culture shock. At the time, I was the only Black student in a lot of lectures. I was the only Black person in my halls of residence, and I found myself having to deal with the color of my skin, which is not something that I had come across before, having been born and raised in the Caribbean. So not only was I trying to navigate this very difficult area of law to study, I was trying to figure out how to be the Black girl in everything. And that was the biggest struggle, I think. Not the academics, which were difficult, just sort of finding my feet and finding my focus. I didn't find that there was any space for me. There weren't any organizations like Birmingham Black Lawyers that I could join and feel part of a bigger network. So that was the biggest struggle. So I didn't attend a lot of networking events, which is one of the things I say to my mentees and or student members at Birmingham Black Lawyers. You've got to put yourself out there. It's not always comfortable. And I think one of the things I did wrong is that I just hid myself away because it was easier and more comfortable to not have to explain about life in the Caribbean and when I learned English and all the other ridiculous questions I was being asked. So fast forward several years, I didn't get a training contract because I wasn't applying, and the applications I was sending were nonsense because I didn't have a mentor. I went back to doing secretarial work, which I had a background in doing back in the Virgin Islands, which is where I'm from. And I eventually found my way to Kishmas, where I actually ended up working for 17 years. I joined as a temp legal secretary just to pay the bills. And things really grew from there. They saw my passion and my talent, and they gave me a chance. And I got a paralegal role first, and then I got a training contract and qualified into medical negligence. So I stumbled into medical negligence because you have to do a litigation seat as part of your training contract. And that's where I was told that I would be doing my litigation seat. And it was fantastic. I am a litigator at heart, and I didn't even know it. I love the client work. I love the difference in every case. I love the challenges of litigation. And I think it just suited my personality in a really unexpected and beautiful way. And I have not turned back since.
That's wonderful. And that for me showcases the importance of opportunity and feeling like you belong somewhere, because, you know, again, this is from my experience, you know, reading politics at King's College London, it was a very, very good experience on the whole, but I did find that for myself, I was the only Black student in my seminar, in my lecture. I'm looking around saying, is anyone else like me? And so actually through my 3 years, I had to learn how to not always look for other Black people, because sometimes it wouldn't be there. And so I would say that if anyone is feeling as if they don't belong, you know, try and look wider than just race, because actually a lot of my friends were not actually Black, because I was able to then, you know, to move out of that cultural barrier. And I think, to be honest, it can be quite difficult, because you, as I said, it is a culture shock, because when I was in my primary school and my secondary school, it was a bit more diverse. And then I get to university, and on that particular course, I can't speak for the whole university, but on my course, politics, it wasn't as diverse as I would have wanted it to be. And so obviously it's about dealing with that and then navigating through those feelings as well. And I like what you also were talking about, how you had to push beyond the kind of the naysayers, those who didn't believe that you'd be able to achieve becoming a solicitor. And wow, you know, what an achievement where you are right now. You know, you've been named Solicitor of the Year, you know, you've won the Black Talent Award, and you were honored as the Inspirational Women in Law champion. And so obviously, you know, you didn't let that kind of, those naysayers or the negative voices that were trying to, that were trying to cloud your mind, stop you from achieving. And actually, that is one of my next questions. But one of the questions that arose actually while I was listening to your journey was, you mentioned two things that I want to hone in on. The first one was networking, and the second one was mentorship. So can you briefly just talk to myself and the listeners about the importance of both of those things in terms of advancing into your chosen career?
Yeah. Networking is almost like a swear word to some people, because people hate it. People don't want to go to networking events. They say, how do I network? How do I approach strangers? And I get it, because I would say the same thing. I'm not a fan, or was not a fan of networking. But in my role now, I understand how important it is to speak to people. When you come to BBL events, though, we make it easy for you by introducing you to the seniors in the room, and just helping you to develop the confidence you need to network. And I think it's important to make people feel safe in the spaces that they're in, because that helps them to lift their confidence and and talk to people. And we just make it as easy as possible. It is okay to not it is okay to be the only Black person in the room. It is okay to be the only woman in the room. It is okay to be the only young person in the room. You know why you're there. Do what you're there to do. And yes, it would be comfortable to have some Caribbean jerk chicken on the menu rather than something a little bit more bland. But who cares? Why are you there? What is your purpose? What are you trying to achieve? And focus on that. I lost focus during my first year of university, and I got so caught up in the fact that I was the only Black person in the room that I allowed that to affect my studies, and actually affected my grades during that first year, because I was so homesick and feeling so disconnected from everything else. But I had to just snap out of it. Encourage yourself, elevate yourself. Sometimes there isn't somebody there to you don't have a mentor. There isn't somebody there to encourage you. Encourage yourself and stay focused, and remember what you are trying to achieve. It was never going to be easy. So dust your shoulders off, cry that day, cry into the pillow, have a whole meltdown, and then the next day get up and go again. And it's that sort of attitude that I eventually had to develop to push myself. And I've been really blessed, Faith, in winning the awards that I've won since, both for my work as a solicitor and my work with Birmingham Black lawyers. And it's just all, I'm very grateful. It's just a massive blessing the way things have progressed for me.
God is good, definitely. He's good all the time. God is good. And you know what, I can definitely relate to that. As I was saying before, my aforementioned point, that I had to push beyond that. Yes, I was the only Black female student in the room, but I had to think about, Faith, why are you here? Why did God send you to King's College London to read politics? Don't let it cloud your studies. Don't let it cloud it. And yes, there were days I was like, God, really, have you, how could you send me here to this place? And I'm struggling sometimes. It's hard. I'm away from home. I mean, from Birmingham to London. But then I realized that God knows everything, and it actually began to shape my narrative. And I changed the narrative from, rather than just focusing on what I didn't have, I focused on what I did have. I did have God. I did have an opportunity to study at a good university. And so for me, that was that was my tipping point moment, as Malcolm Gladwell would say. And so your tipping point moment, Kishma, was then when you said, you snapped out of it. You had those down days, but you didn't let it cloud your studies, because I think what we have to understand, and what you understand, what you understood understood and what I understand now is that if we let our kind of situation stop us from achieving, we will regret it. And yes, it is hard to not give in. Yes, it's hard to not be upset. I did cry some days, and oh my gosh, I'm by myself. I'm in London. I remember on the first day of first year, I got lost, and so I called my dad in Birmingham. My dad was like, "You need to ask someone." So that pushed me out of my comfort zone. I'm an extrovert, yes, but I had to ask a random person on the street, "Do you know where Bush House is?" And so that was my tipping point moment. But definitely, there's a lot to discuss here. There's a lot to understand where you have to really understand why you're there. Obviously, I'd love to have jerk chicken when I go to the Chambers events, but it's about, that would be great to have a ginger beer or something like that to remind me of home. But it's about, as you said, think about why you're there. Think about why you're there, what you have to offer. And definitely that is some very sound advice. And so talk to me a bit more then about mentorship. How did mentorship help you in terms of making those applications and getting to the top?
Yeah, again, it's so important. It's right up there with networking. And sometimes it's the networking that leads you to a really good mentoring relationship.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any, mentors. I didn't really have anybody to look up to as Black female lawyers when I moved to the UK. And that, I think that really added to the struggle. I didn't see anybody where I was trying to get to. And that can be really difficult. And it's only through Birmingham Black lawyers, because I got together with friends and we said, you know what, we can't carry on like this. We need to create a network. We need a space so that some of the experiences we had, other young people, especially people coming from abroad or outside of the city, we need to create a home, a network, a place for them, so that they don't feel as isolated as we did. And it's only through promoting Birmingham Black lawyers and trying to grow the organization and trying to set up events that I met my mentors. It was amazing to find that there were powerful Black females out there in law doing their thing that I could look up to, and I latched onto them immediately. And years later, I have the same group of mentors who supported me in my decision to leave Shoesmiths after 17 years and join CL Medilaw. That was a massive move for me. But I felt supported. I felt understood. There were people that I could bounce ideas off. There are people that tell me, girl, sit down. There are people that tell me, no, that's not a good idea. Because sometimes we get ideas in our head and we think, yeah, that'll be good. I should do this and I should do that. When you bounce it off somebody else, you think, maybe not. Maybe that's not so sensible. So as independent as I am, I do have people that I talk to, particularly about really important career decisions. And it's really served me well. So I cannot advocate enough for mentorship and having a good mentor or good mentors. There's no rule that says you can only have just the one person. Especially as lawyers, we're really busy and my mentors are not always available when I want them to be. So I have a choice of people that I can speak to, and it's incredibly important to have those people in your life.
That's wonderful, Kishma. That is wonderful, really, to see that growth and development for yourself. As you said before, when you were in the first year with no mentorship, it was a struggle, it was difficult. But now, on the flip side, years later, you actually have those mentors who are actually able to guide you, to making those right decisions that will actually benefit you in the long run. As you said, sometimes we have ideas and then we talk to someone, they're like, oh, you're not quite there yet. Maybe you should take a step back, get some more experience under your belt, and then reapply, or then try again. Or maybe that direction isn't even for you. And so mentorship is definitely important. I've actually been blessed also to have a mentor, and she is actually a barrister at the Chambers, and for me that's really helped me, because we will sit down either in person or via Zoom and talk about my journey from a non-law student into law, because she also did a non-law degree, and so that's actually helped to shape our conversations. And so mentorship is definitely important, and I would encourage anybody, just like Kishma, just like myself, mentorship is important in order to help you get to the next level, because it will allow you to tap into a new narrative and to new thoughts and ideas that you weren't previously aware of. And so just concluding, really, because we've really delved into a lot today, Kishma. We've talked about your awards, we've talked about the Birmingham Black lawyers, we talked about your role as a solicitor and specializing in medical negligence. And actually, I should say, everybody, Kishma was very kind to offer me some work experience. I remember in 2018 I went to Shoesmiths.
Oh God, yeah.
Time flies. So yeah, that was really enjoyable actually, and that allowed me to tap into a new world. And so actually, Kishma, we met through church, but it's really important networking to just write to someone, you know, just strike up a conversation, build up a good rapport with them, and it could lead to something. And even if you don't get work experience, just having that work, just having that connection with somebody will help you, you know, exactly to build your network. So Kishma, as we're concluding, I want to just get into your role as a solicitor. So could you just talk to us a little bit about what are some of the most common types of medical negligence cases you handle, and what advice do you have for individuals who believe they may have been victims of medical malpractice?
Okay, medical malpractice, that's a very American way of saying it. So what we do at CL Medical, we act for claimants only, so individuals who have suffered harm as a consequence of substandard care or treatment provided at the hands of the NHS or private medical practitioners. So it can be, you know, a dentist who, you know, there was a surgical error and then you have long-term consequences. We do quite a lot of work with families whose babies have suffered with cerebral palsy or other types of brain injuries. We work with people who have sadly lost loved ones as a consequence of mistakes that are made. Medical negligence, it's a high bar, and we get a lot of inquiries from people who understandably are frustrated with the standard of care they're receiving. But just because you're unhappy about something that's happened doesn't make it negligence, and it doesn't necessarily give you grounds for a medical negligence claim. So if you're not sure whether you've been injured or whether your injury would amount to a claim for compensation, I would encourage you to make a phone call, get in touch with us at CL Medilaw, and all initial conversations are entirely free of charge. We will just give you some guidance as to whether or not there's a potential claim there. I find my work very, very rewarding because we're able to support families and people who have gone through some of the worst experiences of their lives. Just sort of hold their hands through getting compensation, getting into the right housing, getting the right support, therapies and rehabilitation in place for their loved ones. So it's a really rewarding area of law. And if any students are out there, we do need some more people specializing in this field. So if there's anybody out there, anybody listening to this podcast that's interested, do try to learn more about it. Do attend any seminars that are available. There's lots out there that's free. Sign up to different chambers. All barristers are always hosting seminars about different areas of medical negligence. There's a lot of free information out there. So do your research, tap into it, and see if this is something that you can join me in doing at some point in your life.
Fabulous, Kishma. Thank you for that call to action as well to the listeners to head to those seminars, go to those websites and type in that free work experience, whether you want to be either a barrister or a solicitor. So you've actually talked about, you've segued already into the next question, which is great because you talked about some memorable cases as well. So I actually just want to ask a few more questions before we end today. So as a legal professional, what are some of the most critical changes or reforms that you would personally like to see in the healthcare system to prevent medical negligence and then to protect patients?
Oh gosh, that's a whole different podcast, and that question just sort of shows me your political background and your political studies, because it's a difficult one to answer. I think that I mean there's a lot being said about the NHS at the minute, and I am actually a fan of the NHS. I think they do incredible work. I think that there are some incredibly hardworking people just giving their all every day on the front line. And we all benefit from that outstanding service. But there are times when it goes wrong, and there are a lot of usual suspects when it goes wrong. You need to look at how many hours people are working, whether it's the right grade of professional attending to patients, whether the time that the proper time was taken to investigate symptoms, because there's so many people waiting and they're trying to get through a long queue. It's the pressures on the NHS real, and there needs to be further financial investment in their staff and better treatment of their staff so that they can provide a better service. So I think, yeah, we can talk all day about the improvements that are needed in the healthcare system, but I think everybody knows that what the NHS needs is proper investment and the right decisions being made by the
For them,
government to
yeah.
make sure the health service continues to improve and thrive and serve the people in our communities at the level of service they are entitled to have.
I would completely agree, and I am in full support of the pay rise. You know, when I've been looking at how working in the NHS, they're literally working so hard. You know, my aunt's a nurse as well, and I see the pressure that she's under as well to deliver certain things. And then obviously the NHS is in crisis because the government needs to revisit its strategy and kind of its approach towards the NHS. But just moving on then briefly. So just finally, because I know that we're running out of time, but how do you balance your responsibilities as a solicitor, co-chair, and advocate for diversity and inclusion? So what strategies do you actually employ to maintain a successful work-life balance? And then I want to also add to prevent burnout, because burnout has really been on the increase, especially in working professionals.
Yeah, oh gosh, again, oh, that's a difficult question because do I have the right balance? It's sometimes, some days I feel like I do, and other days I don't think I do, because in addition to all those hats, I am a mother of three,
Yeah.
and it's important to be really, really organized. I think that's how I survive it. I have a diary that I put everything in so I know where I'm supposed to be. At any given time, I set myself lots of reminders. And I think everything is important, but you need to remember that some things are going to be more important than others and prioritize. So today, for example, I need to go to a leavers assembly at my child's school. So I had to choose between attending a meeting at that time or attending my child's school. He is a priority. The meeting will have to wait.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to make difficult decisions. You can't attend everything. Some deadlines need to be pushed because at the end of the day, I'm one person. And as you say, Faith, burnout is real. It is real, especially in this profession where you're sometimes expected to work really long hours. Thankfully, I'm at a firm that does not encourage that. But I know many of my colleagues easily work 12-hour days.
Yeah.
And when you have other responsibilities on top of that, it can be very, very overwhelming. Stress in the legal profession is a very real thing. And I think if you're looking to get into law, I think you need to, at the very beginning of your career, set very clear boundaries. When you get in as a trainee, as a paralegal, as a junior, wanting to work hard and show people that you're invested and you're really keen, you give more than you need to, and then it's hard to then take it
So
back.
then pull that back, yeah.
It's about setting boundaries early on, protecting your mental health and understanding the importance of your complete well-being from the very early stages of your career. You develop those good habits early on, and they will serve you well as you become more senior and you get more experience in law. You would have already sort of developed those really good habits.
Definitely, yeah.
That I'm trying to rein it in now, but it's not.
It's true. It's really true, because it takes 21 days to form a habit, and when that habit is formed, whether positive or negative, if it's a negative habit, it's then hard to get rid of that habit. And I think what my dad always says to me is planning prevents poor performance in every aspect of life. Once we plan, once we have good time management, organization, and that's what I always podcast about when I'm doing my episodes and just podcasting and talking about a subject, relating to how to study and the study skills and time management. And that's what I always say: planning prevents poor performance. So thank you, Kishma, as well, for talking about how boundaries need to be set from the outset of your position, how habits can really have an impact on your life, and that's really, really great. And also mental health, I definitely say mental health has to be prioritized, because you have to make sure that you are giving yourself that space to process things. And so I always say to students I'm talking to, and just people in general, make sure that you prioritize your mental health. Don't put yourself under any undue pressures or stresses that aren't necessary. So make sure that you are not pushing yourself to try to prove anything to anybody, and make sure that you are comfortable where you're at. And so just finally, really, looking to the future, what are your goals and aspirations in your legal career, and how do you plan to continue making an impact in the field of law?
I think there's lots more to come. I'm really grateful and I'm fortunate to be at the senior level that I'm at. But there are other areas of law yet to be tapped into. And I think that as I grow in seniority, there are other opportunities that I can and plan to look into. I don't want to say too much more about it, but I'm always planning. I'm always thinking about the next thing,
Yeah.
always thinking about the next step and progressing. So I think that it's important to set an example, especially in my position as one of the leaders of Birmingham Black lawyers, with so many young people looking to me um, as a role model. It's important not to rest on your laurels because you think you've done well.
Yeah.
You know, that's the end of it. And I don't think that way, and I don't feel that way. So I'm looking forward to growing Birmingham Black lawyers, and I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to progressing as an individual in my career and
Wonderful.
taking advantage of all the opportunities that are available to me as a Black young woman coming up in law. So whilst I'm senior, I still feel quite junior because there's so much
Yeah.
stuff that I can do. There's so many places I can go with my knowledge and experience. And I think it's important to keep going, keep growing, look for the
Yes.
next, keep
Opportunity.
aspiring
Yeah.
to be more and do more and be better because you never know who's looking at you for inspiration. And it's important that you not let those people down or yourself.
It's true. Wonderful, Kishma. Those are some very good words of wisdom to finish off this interview today. And I just want to echo that and say it's really important to have a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. You know, be open to opportunities, be open to push yourself out of your comfort zone. It can be challenging, but I can promise you it's worth that. It's worth pushing yourself out there. So thank you, Kishma, for spending time with us today to, to talk to us about your journey, your very inspirational and interesting journey. You are a role model, you are an inspiration to many, and I'm really happy that you were able to share your journey on the Faith Brunel's Insights podcast today. Just to conclude, where can the listeners reach out to you if they have any questions?
Oh, I get lots of messages through LinkedIn. So you can send me a message on LinkedIn or via Birmingham Black Lawyers. You can follow us on all social media platforms. Have a look at our website and register so that you can stay abreast of any developments, events, and just come out and join us, put yourself out there, and let's help you along your journey.
Wonderful. So thank you everybody for tuning in. I'm Faith Brunel, and today I interviewed Kishma Bolaji. I'm your host and I'm signing off, and I hope you all have a wonderful and productive week. Thank you very much. Fabulous.